So I was invited the other day by Principal Young-Soo Kim and Trustee Rosa Kim to moderate a panel discussion around the topic, Stories on Korean American Experience. It's really awesome. I had a chance to meet author E.J.Koh, who wrote The Magical Language of Others, Yoon Choi, a Korean American author of Skinship, and Edwin Chang, Pixar director and writer. He had directed Wind, a part of Pixar's Spark Shorts, now streaming on Disney+. So we talked about their personal journey, the work that they've done, and topics around cultural identity and bicultural strength. So Silicon Valley School, Korean school, recorded this seminar, so when they share it, and if it's public, I'll be sure to add that link in the description. But right now I wanted to go ahead and share 3 lessons that I learned from this panel discussion. The first came from E.J.Koh on giving students space for socio-emotional learning. Now she talked about writing and encouraging students to give them a space to write around the idea of magnanimity. This is the idea that you write and are able to display and write about multiple kinds of emotions, even opposing emotions. For example, intense feelings of anger and sadness right alongside compassion and love. And so having a space to process that is just so important. There's so many different kinds of emotions that may be there as a part of the experience. Once again, Koreans are not a monolith. As E.J.Koh shared, their experiences will differ. However, there are oftentimes complex emotions. And do you think students need that space to deal with their mental health and understand their own social and emotional health? And how might it help them if they had space during their day to process this well? I call this socio-emotional learning and socio-emotional leading as well. Lesson number 2, giving students space to make questions. So in the short film Wind, there's actually this grandma. And what might people see? Edwin Chang, the director, he mentioned that when people see this character, that they would see beyond a Korean grandma, but just think, hey, that's grandma. So what an opportunity to make a connection, and how important these kind of connections are. I was just thinking about the surge in anti-Asian racism, and a lot of it connecting to elderly Asian Americans. And I wish maybe they had seen this film and thought, man, that's grandma. And by leaning into his own Korean culture, it allows others then to lead into their own culture and perhaps create a kind of shared culture. A great lesson on using culture to include versus exclude. Lesson number 3, giving students space to embrace change. So author Yoon Choi talked about her evolution as a writer. So initially when she started and began to write, she was tempted to imitate and wrestle to find her own voice. So I think we need to give our students the permission to begin that space, to have that space to find their own voice. I know we talked about the K-wave, which includes K-drama, K-food, K-beauty. And in fact, I even have a video on that where I talk about K-resilience. But might we see something in the future called a KA, a Korean American wave, that might also include stories of resilience and navigating socio-emotional learning, strengthening their cultural competence, building inclusive practices. I think creating these kinds of spaces and including Korean American stories benefit Korean American students and also all students with growing in their SEL, making connections, and embracing change. These are 3 lessons that I learned from 3 pioneers in literature and media. This is Dr. Jeff from Ed Family signing out.